Welcome back to Travers Talks. Today we're joined by Sadie Holzmeyer from the Digital Democracy Project, a nonpartisan nonprofit working to put real legislative power back in the hands of everyday voters through a free civic engagement platform. Sadie breaks down how Michigan voters can now weigh in on actual state and federal bills, hold their legislators accountable, and help shape a more transparent democracy, one vote at a time. So let's tune in to Jim and Sadie.
Sadie, welcome to Travers Talks. It's great to have you on the program. Sadie told me before Sadie told me before the show she is in beautiful Florida. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, beautiful Florida. Working on some, and this is what the topic of the program is. You listen to it on the intro. It's the Digital Democracy Project. Folks, I did not know what that was until I started investigating it. They reached out to us here in Traverse City, and so Sadie was gracious enough to come on the program. So, Sadie, tell the listeners what the Digital Democracy Program is. Explain that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so Digital Democracy Project, we're a nonpartisan nonprofit all about building a voter-driven system of government, putting more power in the hands of voters. So how it works, we provide a free civic engagement platform where we're posting real bills, giving voters a chance to weigh in. They say if they support or oppose, how they want their legislators to vote, and then we're posting all the updating results so everyone can see what the voters want. And then after our legislators vote, we post how they end up voting and do a comparison so we can see how closely the legislators' votes matched what the voters wanted, so that voters can hold them accountable if they don't like how they're voting. So that's kind of the overall idea.
So is it some kind of app that you use? In other words, does the voter does he or she do they have an app on their phone or anywhere where really? And how does that whole process start?
Yeah, so our nonprofit, we have a website, digitaldemocracyproject.org. That's where anyone can go to see all the info, all the results. And then individual voters can either get verified on the votes. We partner with them. They have either a mobile app option or a web app option. So Votes is a certified mobile voting technology. They started for service members overseas to be able to vote from their phones. So we use their technology to verify voters are who they say they are, and then voters submit their votes through their either mobile or web app, and then everything gets relayed from them to our website. So that's kind of how it works and how individual voters are able to weigh in. So anyone can do that at their convenience. And we actually also do state level bills in Michigan too. So Michigan voters can vote on Michigan state bills and federal bills.
So there are a lot of bills that go through Congress. I mean, well, even Michigan, through the legislature here. How do you get around the fact that, you're going to put a Democratic bill up or a Republican bill? Who makes the choice as in regards to, what bills appear on your platform?
So we try to prioritize bills that look like they're going to advance and come up for a vote, so that regardless of which sponsor, which party is behind it, we want to give voters a chance to weigh in so they can initially say how they want their legislators to vote, have their say on it, especially if it's going to be voted on and maybe possibly even passed into law. So that's kind of the main thing. And then just high profile bills that are interesting or have a high impact, we want to prioritize those. But we do a lot of outreach to like organizations. So if we get contacted by one of them and they request for us to carry a specific bill, we'll sometimes try to do that to kind of balance bills, especially bills that are advancing, but also bills that are of interest to organizations or that voters might find interesting. We'll try to post those in there. So we have some tools, but we definitely want to be getting more input from people on the ground in Michigan to to make sure we're getting the bills that are of interest of Michigan voters, especially.
Do you find, I mean, when voters say, "Hey, give me, I want to see this bill on the platform or that," do you see a preference from one party to another? In other words, do you see the Democrats or the Republicans offering up more bills they'd like to vote on, or is it pretty well split, or what's been going on? What have you seen?
Yeah, so our nonprofit overall, we try to take the party politics out of it and focus on the issues on the bill. And so we get a lot of interest, especially from nonpartisan organizations that aren't affiliated with a party either way and are more involved in like issue advocacy or certain legislation that they're advocating around. So yeah, it's been pretty balanced for who's reaching out, but it's not typically like aligned with the party for who's requesting bills.
So, another question I had, when people download the app or they go on the website and so forth and so on, they've got to be pretty tech savvy, I would think. You'd have to have, tech savvy people to vote on the legislation. And does that become sort of self-selected in its own right? In other words, you're getting skewed towards the people that really, love their computers or their iPhones and really know how to work them, versus a person that might not be quite as skilled.
So I feel like I can speak to that pretty well because I myself am not tech savvy at all. I see the value in this as far as like getting input from voters, having influence and power that way, giving voters more of a say. And I have a big interest in policies, kind of where I got interested in this, not so much the tech aspect of it. So with me not being very tech savvy, I find it pretty easy to use. So the verification process initially, that's a one-time process to use like a photo ID, do a selfie scan to get verified. And then from then on, the voting especially is really easy. If you're in the web app or mobile app, you just go in, log in, and you can use the info bubbles to get more info, but you're just selecting if you support or oppose, yes or no, how you want your legislators to vote. So that's really easy. A lot of people do think that we'd have like a lot of younger tech savvy voters weighing in, but like the League of Women Voters has been one of our biggest supporters. So we do have a lot of older voters that are weighing in, and the technology can be a little bit of a barrier, but I think they definitely see the value in it. And it's once we are able to show them like how to use it, it's really not that hard, the technology aspect of it.
So but they still have to step up to the plate. They still have to find you guys. In other words, they have to, hey, say, the Digital Democracy Project is out there, and we'll put the web page on the show notes so people know where to go. But here's another thought that I had, and I'm thinking about the big beautiful bill or the Obamacare bill back when he did the health care bill. Those are really long bills. I mean, and I can't, even Nancy Pelosi at that particular time on the Obama healthcare bill said, you want to know what's in it? Read it. Well, it was like 700 pages. And I believe the
Mhm.
big, beautiful bill was probably around 300 or 400 pages and very intense. How do you handle that? I mean, how do people handle it if they want to vote on a bill, but yet it's so massive?
Yeah, that's definitely not something that we're expecting people to do, to read through the actual bill text. So, initially, what we're doing, if you go to the website, you'll see a summary, kind of breaking down the legalese. We want to put it in a easy to understand summary that anyone can get the idea of what the bill's about. And then we've also added in new features, so you can see pros and cons about the bill. You can see stances organizations have taken on the bill, and then our founder has a background in AI. So we've also added a chat bot called VoteBot you can use to ask questions about the bill if there's specific details you want more info about, or specific questions you kind of want to get more info about. It's trained like based on the actual bill text. It'll give you answers about the bill. So initially, we had our legislative coordinator. We had two legislative coordinators in out of Tallahassee when we were doing state legislation. Florida was our first state. So they were reading through the full bill text. We had a Democrat and a Republican to make sure we were getting balanced summaries. They were reading through the full text of the bill for each of the bills, and we typically do about 80 or 100 in like a 60-day session for reference. So it was a huge workload for them. So with our founder's background in AI and some of the advancements in AI, we've been able to integrate that to where we can use AI to process the bill text. You know, if it's a full, like you said, thousands of pages, we can use AI to generate like a template text of the summary, and then from there we can use we have people that go through and review it and make sure it's including all the major details, and we can even use the Votebot tool to kind of do some research to help us get like a good summary to put in there. And then the Kialo is another great feature to where if someone goes there, they read the summary and they feel like there's some detail that we left off, they can put that into the Kialo as a pro and con or pro or con. And then our team, once we review it, then anyone's able to go on there and see more details about the bill that way too. Because we definitely want people to understand the bill to know how they want to vote if they support it or oppose it.
So you said you use a Republican and a Democrat to look at the bills. Are they or maybe have input or say, hey, this is, incorrect or not correct or whatever. Are those legislators or are those people that work in Washington on the, for, some staff on the Republican side, staff on the Democratic side? What are they? What are their occupations normally?
Yeah. So yeah, initially we had those two Democrat, Republican, and they were both legislative aides. So our one legislative coordinator, he still works as a legislative aide in Tallahassee, and he does a lot with our federal bills too. But yeah, them being legislative aides, and his role as a legislative aide, just being in the meetings, having the access to the agendas, the schedules, and getting all that info about the bills, that's been really helpful. So we also have a Washington state organizing director. So she works in like a political field where she's already aware about the bills. And long term, we want to, in 2027, we're hoping to have bills, carry state bills in all 50 states. So that's something that we'll be looking for, is especially like a legislative aid in each state or some kind of state organizer that can help us track the state level bills.
So how many people approximately do you guys have signed up now that are, looking at the bills?
Yeah, we've had over 20,000 voters across the country that have gotten verified in votes. And with votes continuously being used for real elections too, we're getting more voters that way, because once you get verified in votes, you're able to vote on the federal bills through Digital Democracy Project, or if we're in your state level bills too. So yeah, it's been about 20,000 voters nationwide, and then it's just varies depending on like which voters are weighing in on which bills. And at the state level, 2026 was our first year carrying state legislation. So we're definitely kind of more introducing ourselves at the state level, especially. And 2025 was when we went nationwide. So it's only been an option for voters outside of Florida for about the last year or so. So we're definitely in more of a scaling up phase where we're spreading the word, getting more voters weighing in. And that's definitely will probably always be one of our main focuses, is getting more voters having their say on the bills.
So if you're a voter, listening to to the podcast, they might say, how does this different from polling? I mean, I can almost answer. It obviously seems to be the voter does a more in-depth review of the bill. I would certainly say that probably happens. But beyond that respect, how does it differ from polling? I mean, the polling that comes, for a matter of fact, the big, beautiful bill wasn't well accepted within the country, but from the data and the polling, but it was passed. So by the legislature. So anyway, how does it differ?
Yeah. So in a way, it's kind of like we're doing polling on each major bill in this same platform. So everyone who gets into this platform is able to weigh in on every bill versus like polls from different organizations all over the place at different times, contacting different people. And it's different though, in that we're not aiming for a representative sample. It's more so an option for any voter to be able to weigh in and their vote will get added. So we're not weighting certain votes or like input from certain voters more so than others, or like if we have not a representative sample, we're not excluding people's votes. So it's accessible for anyone to be able to weigh in. I know I don't ever get contacted for polls, so this is just an option for anyone to weigh in on every major bill. And so in that way, it's kind of more so like a more transparent way of the current process of contacting your legislator, either like a phone call or email, to where not only does your legislator know how many voters have reached out, how many support and oppose, but now everyone knows. And with us kind of doing this in a continuous way in a central platform, that's where we want to keep voters weighing in continuously on bills over time, and then therefore getting more input, more voters weighing in, more input for legislators too. So yeah, similar to polling in that we're getting the input from voters on what they want, but also kind of more similar, like a transparent way of contacting your legislator. And the transparencies where we can have more weight, more influence with our voices, more power with voters' input, so that everyone knows what they want, and legislators will feel more pressure to make sure they're listening to their voters and representing what voters want.
Is the voter's identity, I mean, when on a particular bill in let's say Florida, for example, on the last voting they did on the sort of the Save America bill that was just passed or something like that. I don't know what they called it in Florida. So when a citizen says, "Yeah, yes, I like it," "No, I don't like it," they vote. Is their identity available to the legislator, or is that withheld, or how is that handled?
Yeah, so it's the way it's done, it's a secret ballot, so everyone's votes are anonymous. So once you're verified in the Votes app, all your info's deleted. And then even us on like internally, we don't even know how individual voters are voting. We just know the overall results and that everyone who weighed in is a verified voter. So it's kind of private in that way that voters they don't have to worry about people knowing how they're voting, and ideally in that way that they can kind of give more of their honest opinion, and especially trying to keep out the party politics. Maybe they're registered as a Republican, they can have more comfort voting however they feel, regardless of like their party identity too.
So there's really no party identification, right, with this at all. It's just a straight vote. Hey, yes or no, and this is how I feel. Okay, okay, super. Have have you is any legislator that you guys know of, is this swayed their vote at all, or would you see anything like that? I'm
Yeah, so for one, the more people weighing in, I think we'll definitely have more influence on legislators that way. But we're also reaching out to candidates and legislators to let them know about this. And it's an option for them to endorse Digital Democracy Project and say they want to use this as a way to hear from voters. So with us starting in Florida, we've had a few sitting legislators at the state level who have endorsed, and we get a lot of interest in from candidates who have endorsed Digital Democracy Project, and they've said that they use it as a way to inform their voting. And that's kind of where we get a lot of feedback also too. They want to know how many voters are weighing in. So the more voters we get weighing in, the more input those legislators will have to get that info to inform their voting. And then the more voters weighing in, the more other legislators will be interested in using that info to inform their voting too.
Yeah, I'm certainly, and I think most people would, the more people that intelligently vote on something, or the more people that become involved in the democratic process, the better it's going to be, regardless whether you're a Republican or a Democrat or an independent. It really doesn't make any difference. It's getting involved in the process. And unfortunately, in this country, we don't have a lot of people that want to get involved in the process. I think, what is our voting? 50%, maybe less than that. We got the midterms coming up. Sometimes it's even less than that. So you mentioned the people in Michigan. Michigan bills are on your site. Is that correct?
Yeah, so if anyone goes to our website, digitaldemocracyproject.org, there's a bills tab. They can go through there. You can view all the bills. You can sort by either federal or Michigan, and you can see each of the bills we've posted. And then, even from the website, without having to get into the app, you can see all the info and all those resources I talked about. You can use all those from the website about all the bills. And then we're actually, since Michigan's like an ongoing legislative session, we're still posting those. So we're trying to do a set every week, typically on the weekends. So, like this weekend, we'll probably do a set of federal bills and Michigan bills. So, also for any listeners, too, if you have bills that you're interested in that you'd like us to post, please do reach out to us through our website and relay those to us. But yeah, you can check them all out and still get into the Votes app and vote on all the bills for the current session. So for Michigan, all the bills that we had started posting in 2026, you can go back and vote on all those, and then you'll be able to vote on all the future ones. And even for the federal bills, they'd be able to vote on the 2025, 2026 bills for the current 119th session too.
Super. Well, Michigan residents, digitaldemocracyproject.org. It'll be in the show notes. And Sadie, this is really informative. Anything that gets the people in this country more involved in politics, and I mean voting politics, I think it's going to be great. You guys are trying to cover the bases as far as getting the IDs correctly and getting the legislators to, you got the aides involved, so it doesn't become a partisan event. It's a bipartisan thing. And of course, as you said, you guys are a nonprofit organization, and that's always good. And any further thoughts you'd like to tell the audience before we go?
I think we covered a lot, but I definitely would like for any listeners to at least visit our website, check the bills out. I think even myself, I learn about a lot of bills that makes me more interested in getting more involved, engaged, and I think it'll help with voter engagement at the elections too. And you'll be able to see how each legislator ended up voting on the bills too. So that'll inform voters voting at election time and help them hold legislators accountable. But we definitely want more voters getting into the Votes app. Like I said, it's a one-time verification process. That way, we know these are real voters. We don't have bots skewing the results. We don't have bad actors misrepresenting what voters want. And it carries real weight for voters. So we definitely want more people getting into the Votes app and having their say on the bills, getting all their votes in, and helping spread the word. The more voters that are weighing in, the more they're participating, the more power and influence this will have, more power this will give voters, and the better our democracy will function too, the more people that are participating.
Well, Sadie, I appreciate you coming on the show and explaining this great project. It sounds to me like by next year you'll have this really going full throttle through the United States. I know it takes a while to get people that, as you mentioned, that really aren't sophisticated technologically to make them feel comfortable. Hey, get on this with your driver's license and so forth and so on. And I think this is great. It'll be interesting to come back in about a year and talk to you guys and see how this thing is going.
For sure. Definitely appreciate being able to speak more with you and share more with your audience. So thank you so much for helping us spread the word.
Well, thank you for coming on the show, and you take care. And next year we're going to do a redo and have you come back on and tell us how you're doing. How's that?
That sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care, Sadie.
You too.